Once in a while, a movie comes along that takes the horror world by storm. I can't think of any new horror from 2023 blowing minds quite like this one, so it's only right I recap it and give it the nightmare fuel treatment. Please check the links below to the Horror Exchange for more content and merchandise, but for now, this is why When Evil Lurks is nightmare fuel. There will be spoilers ahead. This Argentine shocker comes from the mind of Damian Rugner, the creator of another cult hit, Terrified, which I'll have to get round to soon. And if you've seen that film, you'll know that Rugner doesn't mess around. There's this wave of modern horror filmmakers like Ari Aster and Damien Leone who bypass established norms and ask just how far can we push our audiences, for a number of reasons. As a viewer, When Evil Lurks gave me an unforgettable experience of jaw-dropping and gasping that I've not felt in quite some time. The premise takes the concept of a possession movie but treats possession like an infection, and establishes a set of rules to avoid it akin to something like Gremlins. It's a traditional horror movie base taken in a more physical way rather than a spiritual one, which has a light dusting of creative fun sprinkled over it. That to me was a recipe for a whirlwind of a time. The film kicks off on farmland, with brothers Pedro and Jaime. After investigating some gunfire, they come across the troubling sight of butchered human remains and the parts of a bizarre contraption in a case. The gore here right from the off gives you the impression that the journey ahead isn't going to hold back for the squeamish. And guess what? It doesn't. At all. The brothers' quest for answers leads them to a small house, and within we get the disgusting image of our first possession victim, Uriel. He is a rotten, someone who has become infected by a demon awaiting its birth in a physical form. Really cool idea, and what we get is probably the closest thing to a boomer from Left 4 Dead I've seen in film. Christ, it's horrendous. Leaking fluids and pus, he's just a big bag of nope. And when it's decided to move him as far away from the land as possible, that leakage continues like a snail trail. Good lord, is it nasty. But as grotesque as it is, it actually amplifies the rotten as a foe. You really do feel like you're looking at a horrific infection taking its toll on someone due to the ultra-realness of the practical effects. Fantastic job there. Well, sadly, a fantastic job isn't performed when removing the infected body. The owner of the land, Mr. Ruiz, goes to shoot and kill the man, though it's warned that shooting him will have repercussions. This is just one of the rules applied to the rotten. Don't kill a host with gunpowder. I love how it doesn't go deeper into the reasons why you shouldn't, or go super detailed into what the origins of that rule are. It's just an accepted thing in the world When Evil Lurks creates. There's, as far as I can estimate, around 6 or 7 rules for the rotten that you should follow. The gunpowder is one because killing someone with a gun dooms the one who pulled the trigger to death. You also shouldn't use electrical devices around them, such as lights, as the shadows they cast can attract them. Even saying a variation of the devil's name can attract them, like a summoning. Across the film, it's also warned to not harm the rotten at all, just let them be. Don't take anything belonging to them, as it'll conflict their attachment to whatever it is. Keep your distance from animals, because they too can be vessels of the demons. And also, if you fear death, it has a higher chance of coming for you, described as a hole opening up beneath you. So to digest that, you pretty much can't fight back against these things at all. You've just got to accept them. Any resistance will be met with death. Being scared will be met with death. Even using a torch or speaking of them could be met with death. There's a lot of death. The rules around these demons all lead to one conclusion. Just let them be. Allow them to manifest themselves, and there might be a chance you don't die or get possessed. The situation here is damned if you do, and potentially damned if you don't. And that leaves our protagonists in some particularly difficult states. Back to Uriel, as this rotten can't be shot, instead it's agreed to remove him from the land as far away as possible. However, during this operation, it falls off the back of the pickup truck used to transport him. But this isn't a blessing by any means, as this rotten is still out there somewhere. That's just one problem for Mr. Ruiz though, as when he returns back to his farm, there's a big problem waiting for him there. His wife senses that one of the goats has now become possessed as well. This is a spreading of the original rotten's possession, infection, and I love that. It dovetails into the concept of infection. Though the original Rotten has one demon inside of him, the powers of that demon can spread into other hosts. It's a really neat concept for a possession film, and one of the coolest ideas and realizations of possession for me since It Follows. This goat scene leads to one of the film's most nightmare-fueled moments, one which was captured in the film's poster. Mr. Ruith shoots the goat, but remember the rules, he's doomed. So his wife smashes an axe into the side of his head before turning it on herself. Bloody Nora, did this come out of nowhere. I suspected that the involvement of the axe was going to be significant due to its inclusion in the poster, but the setup of the shot is done in a way where this axe swing is instantaneous. It's graphic as hell and looks frighteningly authentic in its execution. From this point on, you just know deep down that anything can happen at any time here, and boy did that keep me on me toes for the remainder of the runtime. Pedro and Jaime know that something evil is afoot, and the only plan they can think of is to leg it. Gather what you can as quickly as you can and proceed to run as far as you can. I rate how plausible this is. Far too many horror films involve people trying to investigate the evil force, digging deeper into it to try and find a way of stopping it, but it always leads to further damage being done. And even though later in this film they have to investigate the evil force further to prevent the birth of the demon, the characters aren't aware of that at this point. So when it comes down to fight or flight, they choose flight, and that is the most sensible choice. It's the most logical option. Try and get away from it and don't stop moving. It leads them all to more family members, including Pedro's ex-Mrs. Sabrina and the children, the two sons, Jair and Santino being Pedro's, and the daughter Vicky being to another father, Leonardo. What follows is the nightmare fuel scene of the film for me. I wasn't ready for this. During a really well acted argument between Pedro and Sabrina, the family dog Roger lunges at Vicky. That initial moment of this dog wrapping its jaws around the head of a little girl will never leave my brain. The dog smashes the girl around like a rag doll. It's barbaric, and my heart leapt into my mouth yet again at the morbid realism. This film's just pure filth. The worst part is you don't expect this scene to go any higher than this. Surely this savagery has got to be the peak here? No, don't be so silly. Vicky is miraculously found unscathed somehow, and you're left wondering what on earth is going on. But while you're trying to figure it out, a pickup truck smashes right into Sabrina. This film's just off the leash. A mother mowed down in a car wreck while her daughter dances lovingly. What is going on? This entire family sequence is masterful. It fires curveballs right between your eyes and moves the goalposts many times in quick succession. It's so much to process in a short space of time, and as such, it's a proper overload of chaos. I couldn't settle while watching this film whatsoever. It's unhinged. It's safe to say that Rugner doesn't hold back when it comes to kids, as it doesn't stop with Vicky. During their escape for safety, Sabrina somehow returns. Bit like Palpatine, really. She kidnaps Santino, and Jaime heads out to try and find him. What we receive on this trek is my most disturbing visual in the entire film. Sabrina is walking down a road cradling Santino while she's eating his brains through his skull like a bucket of popcorn. Oh God. The limp, lifeless corpse of this young boy being gradually devoured, swaying about while being carried. This'll haunt me dreams for weeks. I've got a pretty high horror threshold, but this here made me feel genuinely queasy. It'd be bad enough if it was an adult, but the fact it's a kid made it 100 times worse for me. Especially when Jaime follows up by smashing Sabrina and Santino straight into a tree. Just a nice cherry on the blood cake there. It's said in the film that evil likes children and children like evil. Displays like this make me believe that statement for certain. So there's only one way to eliminate the threat here, as described by Myrta, who the family meet along the way. Myrta is a friend of Jaime's and is a cleaner, someone who goes to get rid of demons before they are made physical, and the remains found at the beginning of the film also belonged to a cleaner. This is a neat idea. There's an infrastructure in this world surrounding the handling of rotten beings, which was a nice inclusion. Myrta knows that to get rid of all this chaos, you have to find the rotten causing all the harm. The original one. The one lost by the men earlier in the film. Uriel. It leads Murta and Pedro to a school protected by children in league with the demon. Felt very Village of the Damned, this. Uriel is found among a stack of corpses buried beneath a stage, and the strange equipment case from earlier is assembled into a device to kill the demon. However, the kit is dismantled, Murta is killed, and Pedro exacts revenge by bashing the Rotten's skull in? Oh god, it's so gruesome. However, it's too late. The demon is born in the form of a blood-soaked child who walks away freely, pardoning Pedro en route. It's a chilling climax, especially with that enormous pile of corpses beneath the stage looking a concerning level of lifelike. Props to the props department here. Anyone dead or who becomes dead feels malleable, with the combinations of the VFX and the SFX making all the damage done feel meaty. The ending to the film here leaves a cruel fate for Pedro, who has definitely been through one hell of a ride in this film. He's lost Sabrina, Santino, Vicky, Murta, nearly lost his brother, and the ending is a twisted one that makes him lose even more. I've yet to go in depth about Jair. He's Pedro's autistic son. He becomes possessed, but due to his autism, it takes a little while for the demon to figure out his mind. Loved this concept, how the condition of a person's brain impacts how long it takes to become possessed. Once figured out, Jair starts to walk and act as if he doesn't have a condition. Later, when Pedro reunites with Jair once the demon has been born, he coughs up hair. Awful body horror. It's Pedro's mother's hair, who he left behind with Jair while going after the Rotten. Now, Pedro's mother is dead. She's been devoured by his possessed son, disguising himself with autistic traits. Pedro's family tree's been torn up by the roots. No happy ending here, and unsurprisingly, When Evil Lurks does a fascinating job at creating an intriguing version of the possession subgenre, and it doesn't hold back. It feels raw. The damage done to its characters comes across as though it actually happened while the cameras were rolling. It's an unpredictable roller coaster where on the first watch anything can happen, and when anything does, it's something you couldn't imagine before the fact. The axe scene, the dog scene, and the skull scene are all individual moments that I think will be remembered for a long time. This is an absolute cracker that made me erupt with shock and held me for its runtime. For its brutality, originality, and leaving me genuinely gobsmacked, I've got no choice but to let the demons be and place When Evil Lurks on our Nightmare Fuel Hall of Fame. Do you agree with my decision? Am I rotten for making it? Let me know all your thoughts about the film in the comments below. I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and I'll be waiting beneath the floorboards armed with another dose of Nightmare Fuel.